Hello friends, my name is Satchbag Drakes and welcome to Anti-Semantics, a show where we will be concisely looking at select points from the game at hand. This time, it's Journey.
Journey, at first glance, seems close to a Zen-like experience. The visuals alone serve as an intriguing testament to a restful time with the controller. It's not quite cel-shaded, and it's also not quite photorealistic. There's a rounded, characterized embellishment wrapped in a realist take on light and a surrealist take on gravity. Regardless of the presentation, Journey, like many titles before it, shows us that emotive stimulation doesn't begin and end with polygon count, though it's clearly not hurting here.
It goes without question that there are some compelling influences here.
A fusion of ancient ruins and elegant Rivendell structures with otherworldly creatures rooted in sci-fi, this unfolding sense of Eastern, Middle Eastern wardrobe and whimsy makes trekking from a desert temple to an Arctic wind chamber come off as a logical progression. And I say that simply because nothing but observation is encouraged from the beginning to the end of this title. It becomes clear that the towering aisles of man-made stone all around this world were once pathways in a populated city before something went terribly wrong.
The motives of this journey aren't explicitly outlined, but it's conveyed as a search for, or a ritualistic imitation of a search for restoration.
It's a journey to Mecca in the form of a majestic mountain. Whatever life remained in these ruins is held in these enchanted tarps and long strips of fabric. They carry you to your next destination as wingers stare until you reach your Mecca, where a white beam and perceived means of resolve lay.
My formal background is in user experience, specifically with web and mobile. Now I say formal, but really that's a bit of an overstatement just because the web and mobile platforms are constantly changing and relatively young. But if I've learned anything from working in user experience, either with mobile operating systems or apps, it's that good technology is technology that sits in the background.
Good software doesn't get in the way of what I'm trying to do. If I want my email from my phone, since it's a popular end-user expectation, I should have access to it fast. Since my inbox usually has a substantial amount of items in it, I should be able to commit actions to each item or a batch of items with a fairly minimal amount of gestures. Since they arrive often and at random, I should have instant updates and notifications. This is good user experience.
Now don't get me wrong, I'm an Android tweaker and a PC gamer. Tweaking and troubleshooting are totally welcome, but they shouldn't interrupt me on a task-by-task basis.
Journey does this in the most spectacular way. Minimalism, in its most exceptional form, says that the user sees less, but only because the designer is thinking more.
What's memorable about Journey is everything that's thoughtfully removed for the sake of immersion.
Visually, there are no user interfaces or extensive overlays, ever. Your focus is exploring your environment. Hitting pause crossfades your view to expansive, ultra-wide pans of your current location. You're never taken away from your agency. The software makes creative assumptions in order to cut down on menus and focus on presentation.
Narratively, there are no voices, no dialogue, and no text.
There's a hieroglyphic 3-act story that exists for the purpose of revealing your objective and importance in completing it. It supplements nothing. In my opinion, this backseated conveyance plays into Journey's interactive strengths.
Sonically, the music of Journey is an orchestral beauty. Now, in all honesty, I know that it's really not too difficult to hand over cash to a composer to put together something really beautiful for a game that's really not that great. But this score is exceptional, appropriately themed, and dynamically triggered, much like Killer Instinct.
The soundtrack crescendos only when you initiate a mountaintop experience or reveal uncharted territory on your own. Its cinematic flourish isn't on rails, it's tethered to your timing.
Mechanically, Journey is about the player's curiosity. If I watch this as a Let's Play, I'm not keeping score, judging accuracy, or drowning in cutscenes. It truly becomes a transformative work of the player.
I get to know more about the player simply because Journey sets all mediums aside so that volition and interactivity take the forefront. However, these items aren't secondary. They're award-winning supporting actors to mechanics, which must champion for a complete interactive experience.
Journey's beauty isn't found in its ability to be a movie with button presses. It isn't found in leaning on an intricate soundtrack. It isn't found in hyper-conscious conceptual commentary. It's found in the curiosity of the player. Journey delivers a great deal of information over 2 hours with no dialogue or text. This is a problem for some people, for an incomplete reason.
I'm not entirely sure that intended game length should be a plus or a minus. Our personal desire to linger in a world that was intentionally built with a particular timer should not impede upon our assessment of that game. The fact that there's even a desire to linger is positive.
And what fractions and parameters are even being used to determine an insufficient amount of playtime for any title? If the numerator in this instance is 2 hours, then what's the denominator? And please, tell me, how'd you get there?
Is it by genre? And what would you compare this title to? What if I journeyed longer to collect scarf pieces? How are we quantifying this? To make an example out of terrible music, over a decade ago there was controversy over Linkin Park's Meteora album because it was priced like any other record, but in total only lasted about 30 minutes. Some felt this was a ripoff. Some retorted saying, "Can you put a time limit on art?" I think both of these ideologies swing too hard in one direction.
The word art gets thrown around as this ascended, ethereal brand of sanctification, when in reality it can take both transformative and sinister forms. It's not the great I am of media. I think the question really comes down to, why am I buying this record?
If I'm buying this record to help a 1-hour road trip pass by faster, I'm out of luck. If I'm buying it because the band's lyrics or the musical style stimulates my mind or relaxes my shoulders, then the fact that I'm purchasing 30 minutes of it may just be a secondary issue. I can play the album again, just like I can play Journey again, and I could also explore Journey more.
The designer's decision was that the game lasts 2 hours. I have no right to slam the designer for successfully committing to their task or failing to meet my nebulously contrived expectations based on my college couch plays of cartridge questing.
It's like saying, yeah, Of Mice and Men was good, but what a ripoff. Steinbeck wrote so much more in The Grapes of Wrath.
When was it ever about length, really? Game journalists, you're bastardizing your own medium, guys. A good majority of players will tell you that Journey was a peaceful, zen-like experience.
Let it be the ancient Eastern undertones, the empty landscapes, the soundtrack, or how humbling the presentation is. I've been trying to figure out if a game, something that requires an involved response from the player, can actually be relaxing. In the book How to Do Things with Video Games, Ian Bogost explains relaxation and the medium's place in producing it.
With regards to engagement, there are two types of media, lean forward and lean back. Video games are considered lean forward because they require attention, response, and physical activity. Other mediums are referred to as lean back because you can passively participate in listening to a song or watching a film.
Bogost goes on to define the ideal Zen game as a casually oriented title that doesn't frustrate, initiate a twitch match, demand great wartime precision, or stray from calm, symmetric synesthesia. Further, the narrative must also evoke peace. A game exploring mass murder with peaceful visuals and audio is still somewhat awry because the act of perpetual killing is a distraction. Solitaire and Hearts are good examples. The software sets up and clears the round on its own, the rules are automatically enforced, and there's no time limit. All that's required is that you move cards. True Zen-like games are games that require nebulous participation and repetitive actions. Titles like Animal Crossing facilitate a systematic series of daily routines, making it somewhat of a Zen title. What's insidious about it is its penalty for not committing to a daily play. This keeps the player thinking about the game even when it's not being played, much like Farmville. That's not very peaceful. The commitment is relaxing, but it's not optional and therefore aggressive. The Zelda series has, to some debatable capacity, encouraged and rewarded open-world exploration. I say that with hesitation. But nonetheless, the placement of puzzles, tricky platforming, and enemies takes that relaxing sensation away.
According to Bogost guidelines, Journey isn't technically a very Zen game. Now, as much as it elicits patient and persistent curiosity, it's very sensational.
There are audio-visual crescendos and cues and Twitch-oriented scenarios like races and escapes that make the game a largely lean-forward experience.
Journey has restful moments though. Sometimes rest works more efficiently on a timeline. For example, I rest a lot more pleasantly after 2 hours of running in a warm shower. I wonder if those same sensations could work on a smaller scale with games.
There are definitely juxtapositions of funneled and open-ended acts in Journey, but even in pointing that out, I wonder if I'm straying a little too far with my perspective. I'm really not qualified to make that call, and Bogost actually knows what he's talking about, so I'd go out and buy his book for real insight. But what do you guys think? Was Journey a Zen title, or maybe nothing more than a successful environmental escape? What do you think about game length? If you're interested in learning more, I'm going to be exploring Ian Bogost's chapter on video game relaxation in a live keynote presentation and game design discussion on my Twitch channel. He has a lot of valuable nuggets in there that I think are worth sharing. I'll attempt to facilitate a Q&A, but it will most likely just become an open discussion because I'm hardly equipped to really unpack all that he's getting at. If it calls for it, I'll even play through Journey and talk through what I've learned from it. Just keep in mind that it's essentially the blind leading the blind here. The stream will be 7 p.m. EST on January 19th, 2014 at twitch.tv/Satchbag. That's twitch.tv/Satchbag. You can subscribe now, that way you'll receive alerts if there's a change in date or anything else. Thanks for your time, guys.